Imagine my shock when I awaken, pull up Twitter, and see that civil war is trending in the United States with around 120,000 tweets discussing it. Certainly, something shocking must have happened. How could people possibly believe that civil war in this country is possible? Well, my friends, prepare yourselves. This one may scare you. From The Independent, Trump under fire for sharing post calling for civil war over U.S. inflation. The tweet from El Salvador's president was shared as a screenshot on the Truth Social site by former Fox Nation host Lara Logan. Okay, so we had, I believe, a tweet from the president of El Salvador saying that the United States couldn't just fall. It would have to be from the inside. I mean, the catastrophe, the crisis that we're experiencing. And so then MAGA King Thanos truthed, because that's what it's called when you post on Truth Social, civil war. Donald J. Trump then retruthed civil war, and thus the former president has called for, oh, you see they put it in quotes, calling for civil war. What would have possessed Donald Trump to have retruthed such a thing? Okay, here's another one. Let's play their game. This is from Business Insider. Trump reshares post on Truth Social that appears to suggest or predict a civil war in America. You see, Business Insider took the lighter approach. Donald Trump didn't say anything about civil war. And it's funny because these blue check journalists are the ones who are like, retweets are not endorsements. So Donald Trump, wanting you to see something, does not predict or call for civil war. But my friends, who wants civil war more than anyone? The fringe of the factions, the fringe, the extremes of our tribal factions. Your run-of-the-mill liberal doesn't know anything about this, doesn't care. They don't pay attention. They just vote for things that are burning everything down. Your run-of-the-mill conservative certainly wants things to be solved and for us to move forward. And then you have your more extreme elements on the right faction who are like, there's only one way, they're yelling about watering the tree of liberty or something. And then you have people on the left who have been screaming civil war endlessly for the past several years. In fact, they're the ones who started it. I don't mean started the war, started the conversation around it saying it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And they keep saying it's white supremacy and it's because of white Americans and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, sure, whatever. Stephen Marsh. He's more of an establishment perspective, so that puts him in the left sphere of influence, has said that he thinks abortion could be the catalyst and that there is a multicultural democracy and there is a constitutional republic and they're in the same space and they can't coexist. So I think, yes, civil war is very, very possible. But I want to point out, among those on the right who advocate for this, they have no institutional power. They are a fringe element. For the most part, not everybody, some people genuinely believe the only solution, and you've got more and more moderates starting to buy this. But what I mean to say is, on the right, as it tends to be, it is the exception, not the rule. And on the left, it is the rule, not the exception, which is why you see these far leftists saying burn it down over and over again for like 2 decades or longer. What do they say? They're like, if we don't get it, burn it down. It's one of their chants. So yeah, burn it down. And they quite literally did far and wide across this country in 2020 over George Floyd, as they tend to do. They throw Molotov cocktails, and there's a funny meme. Sorry, I can't remember who posted it. But it was like, if there's one thing that Joe Biden did that was good, is that he's made gas so expensive that the leftists can't afford to make Molotov cocktails anymore. So, haha. Donald Trump posting about civil war is so far behind the curve, it's laughable. But let's read the assessment from so many on the left. And then I want to tell you, where could Donald Trump have gotten such an idea? Let me just say, I do think that civil war is entirely possible. I believe we're probably already in it. But you need to understand how we define, we need to have a conversation about how we define civil war. So there was this whole period of strife before the American Civil War. And we're probably more in that. What I should say is, I feel like the dominoes have been knocked over and civil war is down the line. And we can see it, and the dominoes are going to hit it soon. With the 2 different worldviews, governmental factions, multicultural democracy, constitutional republic, clearly, one will, they can't coexist. The constitutional republic is this country, and the multicultural democracy is the culture revolution. If you oppose it, you are on the right. If you are in favor of it, you are on the left. At least if you are using left and right as to how we viewed the French Revolution. If you're talking about Democrat, Republican, or economic policy, none of it makes sense. Donald Trump's Civil War post sparks backlash beyond dangerous. Oh, everybody's so angry. And he didn't do anything. He just retweeted someone else saying it. So where do these ideas come from? Well, here's our good friend Jim Acosta saying, I spoke with G.T. Conway, George Conway.
Social media post by Trump on his so-called Truth platform, which is, very Orwellian. But what Trump was, retruthing, I suppose is what they call it, appears to suggest some sort of call for civil war in this country. This is somebody that I guess Elon Musk wants back on Twitter. It's just sort of astounding to me.
I'm just going to pause right there. This is why I think there's going to be a civil war, okay? Jim Acosta did not give you the real context, a real understanding around what Donald Trump did. He says appears to, what do you say, call for civil war? Let's try that again.
It was, retruthing, I suppose is what they call it, appears to suggest some sort of call for civil war in
Suggests some sort of call for civil war.
This country.
In this country. No, it's just someone saying civil war. They could be arguing, MAGA King Thanos, could be arguing based on the tweet from El Salvador that there's a conflict from within, that we are in a civil war, that it's already started. It's not a moral statement. It is not a fact statement. It's literally just two words. We don't know what Donald Trump's intent was from it. He just wanted you to see it. That's the only thing that we can get from this. But when Jim Acosta comes out and says suggesting a call for civil war, that's them flogging you over the head saying, fight, do it. Yeah, that's why it's going to happen. And they, these lunatics on Twitter, they're like, Tim Pool wants a civil war because he talked about it. No, I don't want a civil war. I've seen civil conflict and unrest. And rest assured, you do not want to experience it, especially those who live in cities and suburbs, which is like half the country. You will regret it. Mark my words. I mean, there are some people that just don't care anymore. Fine. But I tell you, all of these Democrat personalities who have been getting violent and pushing the boundaries and burning buildings down, they are going to cry themselves to sleep if anything like this really happens. And all the people who live out in the middle of nowhere, I got two things to say to you. You're probably going to be fine. The people who live out in the middle of nowhere already know, for the most part, how to live in the middle of nowhere, which is most of everywhere. Like most places in the planet have no urban luxuries. So let's just break it down real quick. As the left continually says they're calling for it, what this does is it riles up their base. This is CNN. I know they don't have a lot of viewers, but it riles them up, gets them really angry, and then they'll be like, it's them, it's the white supremacists, blah, 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 blah. As for those who live in the rural areas, I'm sure you already know about the local edible plants because I've only lived out here for a year and I've already discovered tons of the edible plants that are outside. In fact, apparently like 90% of the leaves in this area, you can just eat. I wouldn't want to, but I was reading, I'm watching the deer eat leaves. And then I look it up and it's like, you can eat them all. I mean, it's not fun, but you won't die. So make sure you know what you're doing before you go out and eat random stuff. But we have wineberry season. We have pawpaw. And there is so much insane amount of pawpaw. It's crazy. We have wild turkeys. I just took a video. Bunch of turkeys in my yard trespassing. These turkeys, they're everywhere. I will say, it would be funny if like the apocalypse happens and the supply chain just stops immediately. And then within like a couple weeks, there's no food anywhere. Every single person in these rural areas will go out and kill every single deer. And then it would just like, I think the deer population would go extinct immediately in these areas. Because people are hungry and people would rather, look, if you have the option, die or deer go extinct, people are going to be like, I would prefer to live. So it'll be really interesting to see how quickly rural humans decimate their local areas. Now, that being said, there is something else. In more dense rural areas, like just outside of suburbs, I think you might see people just go out and just kill the deer and eat. I do think in the more rural areas, though, where people have large swaths of land, like 50 acres and such, you're going to see communities form, and they're going to be a bit better at this. The farms, they're probably already armed up, and they're going to defend their food, and you're going to want the food from them. And I'll tell you this: in the land with no food, the farmer is king. So if the supply chain really breaks down, the cities can say and do whatever they want. But you're going to have to come out to farm territory and you're going to have to beg for food. And that's where civil war might kick in. People being like, I have nothing to give, but I do have the ability to fight. You're also going to have tons of people in cities. The joke we made is that one day I'm going to wake up and there's going to be some dude in a flannel shirt with a handlebar mustache stealing one of my chickens, screaming and crying. And we're going to run out and we're going to capture him. And he's going to be like, I'm just so hungry. And it's like, that's right. A New York hipster. They're a big problem in these parts. They don't know how to survive, so they just steal your stuff. Look, I'm not going to act like if everything broke down, I know everything to do to survive. I don't. Not at all. And that's the funny thing. I know more than most people in these cities. So if it really does break down, they're the ones in the cities who are really going to feel the heat. Let's take a look at how the news is handling this. So you just do a Google search for Second Civil War. What do we get? First, there's a Wikipedia entry called The Second American Civil War. That's the first thing that comes up. Then you got, is the U.S. really heading for Second Civil War? The Second Civil War is already happening. I love this one. January 10th. Is it really happening? And then May 11th. It's happening. That's amazing. NPR, imagine another civil war, but this time in every state. 3 states where the civil war could start, by Business Insider. How likely is another civil war? The New York Times. Are we really facing a second civil war? New York Times. Historians answer, are we really headed for another civil war? And the New Republic, we are living in the age of civil war. And that's just the first page. I love this one from, let me see, this is Robert Reich, or whatever his name is. The Second American Civil War is already happening. Heavens, where could Donald Trump have gotten such an idea? It is so irresponsible for Donald Trump to just repost 2 words. Meanwhile, every single influential leftist has been screaming it. I think it's hilarious that I read mainstream press in 2018 that's like, a civil war is coming. And then I go, whoa, did you guys see this? They're saying a civil war is coming. And they're like, Tim Pool's calling for civil war. I'm like, dude, when you write over and over again in your mainstream corporate publications that's happening, and then I read those things and rather tepidly repeat your opinions back at you, that is not me calling for civil war. But this is the point. The point is, they say something, we say, really? And they go, oh, that was you. Donald Trump and various medications. The media reports various medications undergoing testing. Donald Trump says, did you see this thing that they're talking about, this new medication? And then they're like, in the press, Donald Trump is pushing dangerous drug misinformation. And it's like, he was repeating exactly what you said. And this is where we are. I'll tell you why I think it's inevitable. Take a look at this from Defiant Els. Excellent Instagram and Twitter account. Tara Dublin says, there's plenty of baby formula, you dumb MAGA sheeple, tweeting another dumb Russian propaganda trend. May 10th. Then, wait, what? Instead of complaining and blaming someone else for the baby formula shortage and doing nothing, my president took care of it? And he made things better for people instead of worse? Imagine that, MSM. Let Joe work. 7 days later. This is why. These people are genuinely unwell. That's it. I'm not convinced there is a sentient mind behind these tweets. Now, I would just say they're a bot, but they're verified. Maybe they're not a bot. Maybe they're an NPC. Here's how I would state this. There's been a baby formula shortage simply because it's been reported and we've seen photos of it. I know I kind of just tend to trust mainstream corporate press when I can verify these things, or when it has a tendency, when it seems plausible to a certain degree, I tend to accept what the mainstream press actually says. I do double check and verify multiple sources. Then this woman, acting like it's not happening, comes out and says it is happening. This is it. Look at the cognitive dissonance. This is a woman who is a key component in a civil war. She's never wrong. You're always wrong. When she is wrong, she's just not wrong anymore. It was Russian propaganda, but now it's the president doing the right thing. This means that no matter what happens, this zealot will absolutely stay on one side no matter what is true. When you have this level of psychosis and zealotry, that's when you get true chaos. Now, where could have Donald Trump gotten this idea about civil war? Let's continue. From IndieWire.com, Star Trek Strange New World, 23rd century comments on the 21st century and our second civil war. Oh, so it's in popular media as well. I'm not convinced that Donald Trump watches Star Trek, but perhaps. So, of course, I mentioned Robert Reich. What's here? Opinion, Roe v. Wade. The Supreme Court's coming abortion ruling may spark a new era of U.S. unrest. There's a strong risk the court case sparks anger and violence. Stephen Marsh has written the book, The Next Civil War, and he says we're already in civil strife because people are dying over political issues. Interesting. So, as I'm recording this, it is before 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And there has been some speculation that Roe v. Wade could officially be overturned, and Roe and Casey, at 10 a.m. this morning. So by the time I publish this and you're watching it, that news may have already broken. I don't know for sure, but we're awaiting that ruling. There was another ruling. They do rulings on Monday, I guess. Everybody's been saying, oh, man, it's going to hit. And then, I mean, everybody knows it's going to happen. But I wonder, I really do. I wonder if the leak of the information on Roe v. Wade was intentional, not because it would force them to uphold or reject Roe and Casey. I wonder if the leak was simply to prevent a shock to the system. By leaking the information and saying it's not definitive, a lot of people get really angry, but the average person is like, but it's not done. It didn't happen. Now everyone gets used to it being norm. So when the ruling comes out, it's less of a shock to the system. I wonder if that was the intention, that it was not overtly political, that it was a national security thing. Entirely possible, but again, I don't know. My friends, I bring you to why would anyone, including Tim Pool, talk about a civil war? Okay. Wikipedia has an entry called Second American Civil War. Claims of a Cold Civil War 2022 present. I mean, you just have... I'm not going to read this. It's just, there's so much here. So much concern over 2022 midterms and 2024 as starters of civil war, remarks about it from government officials, among Democrats, among Republicans, public perception, research regarding. There's a whole section. Then there's criticism of it, saying misuse. And I'm sorry, there's not a whole section. There's like 6 sections. Actually, let me just read. Let's see, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 sections, sorry, much more than 6, discussing civil war. Now, I love this. There have been no public calls for civil war from any other political party, though some have expressed concern that increased polarization will lead to civil war, which is my position. Jamie Raskin, a member of the Select Committee, January 6th, classified as an inside coup organized by Trump that could have triggered a civil war. Yes. And do you know what else can trigger a civil war? Locking these people up for over a year in solitary confinement. They don't get it. It takes 2 to tango, baby. It doesn't matter if a Republican says they want it or don't want it, which I think is bad. I think it's bad if they say they do want it. The idea that the federal government could lock up people who are angry over this and it would not exacerbate the problem. And that goes the exact same for the left. Now, here's the difference. When the January 20th protesters in 2017 set fire to vehicles, ransacked the streets of D.C., and I personally witnessed it, mind you, and they arrested everybody, not only were the charges overwhelmingly dismissed, the city paid them a settlement, gave them money. January 6th, which is a comparable event, albeit at the Capitol, so substantially worse in many ways. I mean, comparable in theme, but worse in targeting. These people are locked up in solitary for over a year. Now, you may say, but Tim, obviously it was worse to storm the Capitol. Well, of course it was worse. My point is that when the left is released during their ransacking and the right is not, it doesn't matter which you think is better or worse. What matters is the factions view it as, to the left, they're like, why aren't these people getting life in prison? And to the right, they're saying, how come those people weren't getting life in prison? More importantly, the Gravel Institute praised the actions of January 6th, but condemned the actors. Quite literally saying it was a good tactic, which is insane, but it was the wrong people. So you see where this is all going. Government officials talking about second civil war, prepare for war, blah, blah, blah. Donald Trump's talking about it. We have more articles. Are we on the eve of another civil war? Well, as Betteridge's laws of headline states, the answer would be no. But I think the issue here is that it's not as clear-cut of a no. GOP primary turnout suggests red wave in November midterms. 60%, I believe it is 60.9% of turnout in all 10 states that have held primary so far this year were Republican. Perhaps it will not be a civil war because the right is winning. The left wants to create the perception of normalcy. The left wants to create the perception that they are, with their wacky views, mainstream America. They're not. So I'm having a conversation over dinner, and there's an interesting point that, men watch sporting events. They watch goal-oriented things. Women watch shows to see what the social norms are. Men, when they go to a lunch meeting or grab lunch together, it's to discuss something specific, to catch up on certain things. So it's like, and it's not absolute. Obviously, some women do this and some men don't. But the idea is that two guys will be like, you want to grab lunch? And they'll be talking about a project or a product. Women will have a conversation over lunch to figure out what is socially acceptable and normal and find out where that position is. I'm not saying that's definitively true. I'm saying that's the perception among a lot of people. So when you look at where we currently are with the left going nuts, these people on Twitter are only entertaining what they think is socially acceptable. That's why they're losing their minds. I believe that spiraling may actually destroy them and they could implode. If there's one thing that can contribute to prevention of a civil war, it's the fact that the right tends to be more masculine and more goal-oriented, and the left tends to be more emotional and less goal-oriented, less meritocratic. The right is absolutely meritocratic, in which case they may just spiral out and implode because eventually what they do does not make sense and does not align with regular people, and regular people then go out and vote to the tune of 61% for the Republicans. So we shall see. A lot can change from now until November, and if Roe v. Wade is overturned the next few minutes, a lot of people are going to lose their minds. But I believe if they do lose their minds and they riot, it will just inflame the GOP. More people will be like, I don't want this. I'd rather have stability. Again, we'll see. As for Donald Trump, well, he can retruth all he wants. These people have lost their minds. Next story is coming up at 1 p.m., next segment, 1 p.m. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.